I was wrong. My last video with Arlecchino was a bit too critical of the changes and I made it a bit too early. I didn't see the actual changes until after the fact, so let's talk about Arlecchino and where she stands now. Despite me not liking the changes from healing being tied to her burst instead of her skill, the way she functions now is a bit more intuitive. Everything related to Arlecchino in this video is purely speculative and for discussion purposes only. She is essentially a Hu Tao with extra steps, yet different. She will be dishing out insane amounts of damage and her constellations were vastly improved. When she activates her burst, her skill will reset, and normal attacks will actually be reducing her elemental skill cooldown. She is easily able to get off 2 skills per rotation, and when her skill does come off cooldown, that's a good time to know that you should switch off and start buffing again. Let's explain her rotation as it stands now. She's going to go in, use her skill, then her burst, then her skill again. This will generate 2 skills, and refill her gauge to at least half. This is a lot of energy, and then she'll start actually gaining her gauge from here. This gauge will be filled after 5 seconds, which is just enough time to swap off and buff with your other characters. Once Arlecchino hits the field again, her gauge should be ready. You're going to use a charge attack, inheriting the gauge from the enemy, and then commence the reaping. When you continuously attack with the normal attacks, your cooldown for her elemental skill will drastically decrease. You generally want to keep attacking until her skill comes back off cooldown, which will be a good time to know when your buffs are about to run out. You can, of course, stay on Arlecchino to dish out a bit more damage if the enemies are close to dying, but once the skill does come off cooldown, you'll use it again, and then you should by now have enough energy to use her burst, and you'll use that burst to heal, which should heal at least 90% of your HP. This is fairly consistent at C0. From here, you'll use the elemental skill again, and then you'll swap off to buff. The thing is, this will limit her team building because she will be applying so much pyro. She will have issues vaping with 1 Hydro unit, and I'm not even sure if Xingqiu alone can sustain her vaping. He probably can, but just not too sure. 2 Hydro characters, however, will definitely allow her to vape everything. The thing is, she actually gets similar or better damage by just running Mono Pyro. Plus, Zhengling and Bennett are just an amazing combo. At C0 though, Zhengling and Bennett may not be an option because Arlecchino can be CC'd to death against certain bosses. So, one of her best teams at C0 is actually Kazuha, Zhongli, and Bennett. Thoma is also an option as she'll be a normal attacker. And this leads us to her next point. Her constellation changes. If you made it this far, that means you're enjoying the video, right? Go ahead and like this video and subscribe for more Genshin and Wuthering Waves content. Now, let's get right back to the video. So her C1 changed completely. What it does now is provide interruption resistance, and it's very massive. She'll be able to face tank anything similar to Raiden when she uses her burst, but she'll be taking the damage, so keep that in mind. This interruption resistance is triggered after she does a charge attack and triggers at least 1 normal attack. This means that she can still be interrupted during the first stage of her rotation, where she uses her skill into burst into skill. However, with C1, this will allow her to skip out on the shield completely. She could use teams like Farina, Yelan, and Jean with no issues, maybe even Bennett if you're confident with his healing on your other characters. With C0, Xingqiu might have been a requirement for the double Hydro comps because of his interruption resistance, but now you should be able to use Yelan instead, or Yelan and Farina. Her C2 makes it so that she gets an immediate full gauge as well as firing off a large area of effect attack that's more powerful than her burst, mind you, when she does her charge attack to gain her gauge. A very big power increase. My main concerns are still the same, but she does get enough energy to normally heal once per rotation because she'll get at least 3 skills worth of energy, which should be able to refill her burst. You can't really control vaping her burst reliably, so Mono Pyro will be much easier to use. Because of the extended rotation as well, and due to needing to use at least 4 skills, she will have major issues setting up teams to use Kazuha for the double swirl. I did not see a way to make it work seamlessly since she applies so much pyro. If you take the time to double swirl and infuse Kazuha's burst with Hydro even while using Bennett, the setup is just so long that you barely get any uptime with Arlecchino. Also, if you happen to get hit as she hits the field and she doesn't have her burst ready, she's 100% out of commission. You'll need to bob and weave all of the damage while trying to get her burst up so she can heal. The thing is, you have to use her burst after using her skill. If you use her raw burst, she will heal like 5% of her health. If you use the burst immediately after using her skill at C0, she'll heal roughly 45% of her health. While if you wait the 5 seconds for her gauge to get fully filled, then she'll heal roughly all of her health. A major upside to this is that you can swap off mid-rotation, so that's great. You generally will run her like a hyper carry though. Even with all of these changes, I wouldn't be surprised if this all gets thrown out the window next week. Mono Pyra with Kazuha and Zhongli seems promising, and Vape will work with double Hydro. Overload is also a decent option, as Chevreuse' buff lasts 30 seconds, so she can appreciate the longer rotation. If you have C6 Chevreuse, then this is actually going to be a very powerful team. Beidou seems to be a great option to help with interruption resistance too, and provide a bit of damage in AoE. I'm really excited for her release, and I'll be making a definitive guide once the live stream happens in about 2 weeks. Go ahead and like and subscribe to stay tuned to more Arlecchino content. Until next time, Enigma out.